Hi there, welcome to episode 6 of the Teesside Business Podcast. Today we're lucky enough to be sat down with the director of Reed Rains. You alright, mate? How's it going?
I'm fine, pleased to meet you.
Yep. So we're going to dive right into it, same as everybody else. We're going to start talking a little bit about your career and how you came to be working, obviously, alongside
as an
estate agency and everything like that. So what does your career look like a bit, obviously, in the early days?
Well, I certainly didn't grow up wanting to be an estate agent. I don't think many people do.
I don't know if there's many kids out there who do sit there and say, I want to sell houses.
But
property.
I graduated from university,
Yep.
and I actually started in retail. So I worked for B&Q.
All right.
Yeah, so I worked on their retail as a retail management graduate.
Yep.
And I went through the process there to the point where I was based in York.
Yep.
And I was on a management team, and it was a difficult job dealing with complaints all day. People problems with the kitchens and bathrooms and things, and I wanted a career change. The hours were extreme, and it was good grounding for me, to be fair, because
retail always has got that
yeah
extreme hours and long work hours as well.
Yeah.
There's never like 8-hour shifts, especially when you're in management and things
exactly.
like that.
But one thing it did give us was a good work ethic.
Yeah.
And so I looked to change career.
Yep.
And I seen a job advertised with Reed Rains as a graduate trainee, so I went back again. So I took a bit of a pay cut to start again as a graduate.
Yeah.
And I started with Reed Rains in Durham City, and I worked there for 3 years, starting probably in about 2002.
Okay.
And it got to the point where we were doing particularly well.
Yep.
And I was sick of lining my boss's pockets.
Yeah.
Because we were doing so well. So at the time, Reed Rains wasn't a PLC; it wasn't part of the LSL group.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave and set up my own agency along with my business partner Laurie on Teesside.
Yep.
At that point, Reed Rains approached me, and they were starting to roll out franchises.
Okay.
And I agreed, and we set up the franchise, and it went from there. So we've opened up in Middlesbrough.
Yep.
And since then we're expanded into Stockton, and we purchased Gisborough from Reed Rains, so we've got a branch over there.
Yeah, so you're covering like quite a big chunk of Teesside at the moment.
Absolutely.
One of the great things about Reed Rains is we were having a brief chat before the podcast started, it's been going, since 1868. It's been going for 150 years.
150 years this year. So that's one of the advantages of being part of the Reed Rains group. It's a big brand. It's well known, especially across the north.
Fantastic.
So people who maybe are relocating or wanting an agent on the Teesside area, and you're from outside the area, they know our name. So it's a well known. It's a trusted brand as well.
Yeah.
And they've expanded. So there's branches now into Northern Ireland, on the south coast, London. So Reed Rains, I know there's some acquisitions going forward. So they are I think over 120 offices they've got now. Yeah,
and a forward-thinking company, which at that age is like something like a really positive thing.
Definitely.
A lot of companies of that age are very happy to just sit back on the laurels, but if they're looking always forward to expand and stuff.
And I think with estate agency, with lettings and with sales, it's quite litigious. There's lots of, especially with lettings.
Yeah.
So the one good thing about being part of a brand is we're always aware of the changes in law, and we always adapt and change quickly to it.
Yeah.
And equally with the other regulations we've got data protection, GDPR coming out soon, and anti-money laundering laws legislation, which is
GDPR is something that we haven't had anybody to talk about. We do have friends who run an IT company, and I wanted to get him on before the change goes through, because obviously it is a massive, especially for guys your scale, with multiple branches and hundreds of customers, over the years. It is a massive undertaking.
It is. We need to revisit everybody on our database prior to make sure they're registered correctly, and going forward, it's making sure that when we do register people, we let them know what we're going to be in touch with them via. We need to agree for us to be able to contact them and what we're going to be selling. One of the days where you can pick the phone up to someone on our database and call about something separate to maybe houses like mortgages or something. I know we say it's not separate, it's under one roof, but if they've only called us about one thing, we can't talk to them about another. So it's about capturing all the information at once. So there's a big change. So it's going to be a busy month, April, and getting prepared for it for May. So
I just want to talk about that a little bit, because it is really interesting to me, and a number of people who are on it. So if you don't know what it is, then I highly recommend that you look into it.
I think as a business, businesses should be ahead of the game by now, certainly.
Massively, If you don't, then you really do need to look into it. But within your industry, like, is it of a norm for, let's say, you have an estate agent, but would you have an in-house mortgage broker? Like, I know there is a lot of independent, like, mortgage brokers, etc.
We have two in-house mortgage brokers.
And are they separate from Reed Rains, or are they part of? Like,
they're part of our group, so they're based in-house, so they're employed by Reed Rains. They work with us and for us, so in our branches.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, when we as an estate agent, we offer. Obviously, we sell, we let. There's a conveyancing side of it. We've got a relationship with the solicitors. I've got mortgage brokers, and I've also got a separate business, which is an auction company called Auction House Northeast. Yeah. So we've got the arm to the business where we can auction properties,
which is a great venture, and the partnership that I imagine works really well.
Really well, yes.
Because not a lot of people. I was talking to a customer of ours the other day who they're for mortgages and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of people who buy new builds, etc., and they get introduced to obviously mortgage brokers and things, but they don't necessarily know that that's not part of the housing process.
Yeah,
it's just
I think
done for a backhander type thing sometimes.
I've got to be careful what I say about mortgages, because it's very much
controlled.
It's very regulated. So
absolutely.
I could give my opinion on what you just said there, but I better not just in case.
To be honest, I must actually say that. That's my opinion. When it comes to mortgages, please don't take it as any kind of mortgage advice, etc. But that is really good that you've got somebody in house where it's not. Something we can introduce, and that's absolutely fine with people doing business that way. As a business, we want somebody registers with us, and we watch as much business from that particular person as we possibly can, as any business does. So if they ring us to sell a property, brilliant. If we can sell it, if they're looking to purchase, maybe we can find them a property if it's on our books, or we can search one for them. And then when they look to buy the new home, it'd be great if they're using our mortgage advice and conveyancing. So as negotiators who work within our business, they're targeted to do that as well. So it's important to. But it is from the customer end of it. It is like a much smoother, better experience. There's nothing worse than trying to deal with 3 or 4 people on the same project.
It's a one-stop shop, and I suppose, as I said, I can't talk about mortgages in depth, but if you walk into a bank on the high street, you're only going to get their products. If you go and see a broker at our place, they're open up to many different lenders, so you can get
something called whole of market advice. Is it?
Potentially.
I know there's differences within that. I'm not trying to lead you down the garden path.
No. Yeah, we've got brokers and they do a great job, and he's extremely busy. I must admit, our mortgage advisor is extremely busy at the moment. So
it is one of those things where people just kind of think like, I've got to go here, and then I've got the bank, and then I've got to go to the solicitor, etc. Like, it's I think I heard that it was one of the most stressful things that you can do is moving house.
It can be.
It can be. It's good to have everybody kind of under one roof to make it as smooth as you can.
Definitely, and it's about the team as well. And we've got an experienced team in all of our branches, and we try and make that process as stress-free as we possibly can. And it doesn't have to be. I suppose it's all about just managing the time and making sure things go through. But there's always mishaps can happen. There's always surveys can come back. There's something might appear on searches, but it's having the experience to be able to deal with that. And
the only thing you get with that is through experience.
Absolutely.
And the good thing, obviously that you mentioned before, is that you do have like a large infrastructure of Reed Range behind you. Like talking about all these things that you're doing, and I imagine it changes constantly, especially with mortgages and then sales and lettings and then convincing and everything like that. I imagine legislation changes all the time.
It does. There's from energy performance certificates, which have come out so recently. There's changes so very, very soon, where you can't let a particular property if it's under a certain rating. So we need to address everything that we manage to make sure you're over that particular level. For when the obviously the new EPCs are instructed on that particular property. It is a minefield, but I suppose it's just staying ahead of the game. And one thing you can say about Reed's Range is that we represent them as a brand. And they trust us to use their brand.
Completely.
So,
I suppose you've got to kind of go through a set of compliance to be able to keep So they do. They because it's such a big firm and they're part of a larger group called LSL. If we were to do something untoward or potentially something with lettings, it affects them as a group as well as ourselves. So they audit us regularly to make sure we are staying above board, which we certainly do. It's important for us. It's my livelihood. It is. Really important. It is very important. There is everybody's kind of heard those horror stories of people set up to be estate agents, 1 or 2 man bands, etc. And sometimes they can bend the rules a little bit here and there, and it's not obviously we're going to go down, but
it's not regulated. You could open up one tomorrow from your lounge.
Which I don't think a lot of people know when it comes,
But there is a lot of we're members of the Property Ombudsman Scheme. I'm a member of the National Association of Estate Agency, and there's lots of groups, and obviously we're affiliated to
Yeah,
organisations like that. So again, it's all been part of that trusted brand.
Yeah,
really,
we'll come on to that a bit later. Obviously, things that people should look for so they don't get taken for a ride, etc. So one of the things that we always want to talk about is business change a lot over Teesside over the years. Yeah. So we used to be very, very industrial, and now that's kind of waning off, and now we're becoming actually quite tech based.
Yeah.
And there's also like a lot of retail bars, etc., and that's opening up and stuff. Like when it comes to obviously like the property side of it, what kind of changes have you seen in the industry over the years? Or...
Well, as an estate agency in general, there's a challenge now with the online estate agency and how that's going to affect us. I think as somebody who has 3 branches on Teesside, we need to be aware of the impacts they can have upon us. I still believe that there's nothing like local experience and having the experts on the ground, and which we do have.
Yeah, especially people do like dealing with face to face and knowing who they're talking to.
And we specialise in the areas we're in. We don't just cover the whole of the North East or the whole of the UK.
Yeah,
we're experts in Gisborne and East Cleveland. We're experts in Middlesbrough. Experts in Stockton. So we don't profess to be able to sell in Darlington and other areas. And that's the key to it. So with us, I know some agents call locally property experts, and we certainly are. And we've got the experience, and we've got the database of buyers there as well. But the challenges it brings is that, and it's a conversation I have with Reeds Rains, the group themselves, and say, what changes are we making to adapt to it, to the influence of these online agents, the 24/7 culture, and there's things that will be changing within Reeds Rains and the way we do things. But I think it's also important for us to be flexible. I don't want to be tied down by heavy leases for 25 years.
Exactly.
If it comes to a point where the majority are online, so I think you've got to be careful in terms of the changes and being able to adapt. And we certainly have, and we're a lot more flexible now as a business. And
I suppose it's dealing with the Rightmove, etc. That is a very thing people do browse high. It is having a presence on Rightmove, making sure that you're there. But obviously, that's an expense to the business. But you've got to look at. But it's
well, that's key. And one thing Reeds Rains is we advertise on Rightmove and Zoopla, and a lot of our competitors are not on Zoopla because it's expensive to be in them all. But again, the benefit of being part of a franchise, the economies of scale, when they buy a membership for a particular website, they buy hundreds. So we get them at an affordable price. So when you're with us, we're on all the major sites, which is key.
Especially when it comes to selling your house at the end of the day, I don't know, I'm not educated on the specifics, but I imagine Zoopla takes up like a big chunk of the market actually online.
It does. Zoopla Property Group inform us that they're more 25 to 35-year-olds are now looking at their sites than they are Rightmove. And they also say that they take almost a third of the market who look online. So it's important when you're looking for an agent that someone's on Rightmove and Zoopla, and they certainly are. So again, that's an advantage of being part of a bigger group.
That you do get, that. And when it comes to like demographics and things like that, like you mentioned, 25 to 30-year-olds, have you noticed that's changing a lot more? Are people who buying a houses getting a lot more? It's something that's obviously talked about a lot.
I think you're right. I think first-time buyers, the age is changing. But one thing which has changed since the credit crunch, as it's called, is buyers are more educated now. Buyers know that they've got to have clear credit. They've got to have deposits in place. And again, without banging on about mortgages, it's more affordable. There's not the larger deposits probably required as there was a few years back. So we're starting to see an influx of more and more first-time buyers come to the market, which is great. But you generally find that these first-time buyers are a lot more educated, and quite a few are supported by the bank of mum and dad. They're maybe putting deposits forward.
Real talk, I think like me and my wife, when we got our house, we had to lend a little bit of money to them, and obviously pay it back, etc. But not the disposable cash. It's the age-old joke, isn't it, that on a manual labour job, just 20 hours a week, you could afford a house or a minimum wage 30, 40 years ago. Now it's just not the case, unfortunately.
It is. I'll tell you one thing, that's our lettings business has gone to the roof, and we've got so many tenants who want properties, and there's so much in demand, and we can put property on the market and they can go, because you're right, there's people out there who can maybe afford £600-700 a month to rent a property. They might want the first home, but they may not have the large deposit to go in there to purchase it. So whilst they're moving out, or maybe couples are moving together for the first time, or someone's taking the house for the first time, they can't afford to buy it, they can certainly afford that monthly rent. So we find that a rental market, it's quite fast moving.
I suppose that there is a user behaviour there where a lot of couples, especially who move in together first time, are more likely to rent than get a mortgage together straight away, because if they're not married, etc., then it is that big step to move in together before you have a mortgage, etc., attached. So it is interesting how it's changing over the years. I think I seen something, was it by where the college is in Middlesbrough, I don't know what organisation built it, but they built a section of houses that had to do with startups or something like that people were moving into.
Yeah,
I don't know the exact details.
There's lots of ideas. There's Help to Buy and things like that. Yeah. But they support new build properties.
Yeah.
And as an estate agent, there's lots of areas of town, of Middlesbrough and Stockton, where there may be it could do some redeveloping. And and some areas need. It's okay to the injection of cash and redeveloping, but first-time buyers need opportunity to get on the ladder, and rather than build new build properties for them, why not redevelop some of the older properties and maybe have designated areas where they could have maybe 3 or 4 streets where just purely for first-time buyers, and then on the ladder, and then they can come to resell them properties, and then you've got. Is it helping the estate agents or is it helping everyone? But you've got areas where people aren't necessarily living, because we found parts of Teesside where once the market hit, the credit crunch hit, first-time buyers disappeared. And then the only people who were purchasing these locations were maybe buy-to-let landlords, investors. And the prices were driven down. They're driven down to such a point now that they've probably got no chance of getting back anywhere near where they were. You know, some have took huge hits.
Like a negative equity, etc.
And maybe now they're not even areas where first-time buyers would choose to purchase anymore. You know.
So do you think there's a big gap in the market for, so let's say, there's a lot of street houses in Middlesbrough, etc., where developers coming in, instead of looking to build getting a plot of land and build 10, 20 houses or whatever, but maybe actually just getting a row of street houses, redeveloping them and saying, look, we'll go.
I just think to do that, you couldn't be given 4 or 5 out of a particular street. You need to be given
the full street, which is considerable investment. You know what I mean?
It would be, wouldn't it? And you'd need to. I just think that as an investor, you wouldn't want to maybe redevelop some houses where you might not be able to have a chance of selling them because of of maybe the other properties locally, whether they're boarded up or what have you. You know.
And there's there's at the back of Linthorpe Road, for example, now where Psychers, etc. Redevelopment's going on there. That would have been a prime.
I think I'm not too sure. Is there not a student village now going over that way? I think there could well be.
I'm not too sure. I'm going to look at our producer Rick, who might know. Have you heard of housing going on the back there? No, not good. So we don't know. It would again be. Is that something speaking of students, the student culture is getting bigger and bigger on Teesside, with Durham now having a college campus here, which has got a huge amount of students that are in Stockton, and obviously the university gets bigger and bigger every year. Is student accommodation something that is still growing in the sector that investors are looking for, or
I just think at the moment there's student accommodation is so much purpose built.
All right, okay.
And there's buildings being redeveloped into student accommodation. So where you used to have student accommodation quite a distance from the university, it's closing in. So you need to, if you're wanting to buy student accommodation to rent, you want to be as close to the university as you possibly can, because there's so much good quality purpose-built stuff being built, and there's some big buildings that have been converted into student accommodation, which might house hundreds of students. Particular property, Reed House. I think it's on Corporation Road, where that building there has got lots of students in. There's more being built, so where previously they used to be in the student accommodation, they're not. And I believe Durham campus is moving back to Durham.
Is it? All right, okay.
So again, that's another, I suppose, a risk to maybe people investing in that for that type of property.
It'd be a hit of Stockton's economy, massively. You know what I mean? But it's something we've got. So do you think it's still an opportunity of good investment in people? I was speaking to a few people recently, and they said that they were seeing an influx of investors from down south, from London. Obviously, our house pricing is a lot differently from down there, etc.
I think as well, you've got the stamp duty. You need to pay 3% over £40,000 now on a second, third, fourth purchase. So when you're buying properties up here, it's not as big a hit as maybe in other areas. And the one good thing about Teesside is that the yield is the rental yield's fantastic. So we have investors who look at achieving maybe a 10% gross yield. So for instance, if you've got 50,000, just to be crude, £50,000 property, £5,000 a year rent, that kind of thing. And you struggle in other areas to achieve them yields,
So are investors kind of looking at it as a property by property basis, or let's say they have 10 houses and they're looking at the yield across all 10? Or
I think potentially on a property by property basis.
Because I imagine it differs for area and stuff like that.
It does. I think we have investors who maybe want a suburban 3-bedroom and not really worried about so much yield, maybe the quality of property, and they may get some growth in capital over time. And then we've got other investors who look at multiple occupancy, getting as many, not as many people as many legal, but so maybe buying a house where they can have 4 rooms left within a property.
That's very popular in student accommodation.
Well, that's it. So that kind of property, and we sell properties near to North Tees, James Cook, where they may let to nurses on that basis. So multiple occupancy brings a better yield, but in some instances it potentially could be harder for them to manage. But obviously we can look after that for them.
And then obviously going back to the in-house service. So is that something like the trends that you've kind of seen with moving slightly over to the auction side of the business? So when it comes to that, where the auction's held, or are they held in
the Ramside Hall.
Okay.
So we cover a large area. Myself, we have a licence through Auction House. Auction House is the largest auctioneer in the UK. And it's made up of licensees like myself. So we own Auction House, like the Teesside office of Auction House North East. So we cover from just north of Hartlepool to south of Whitby.
That's a big
it's huge. Northallerton, Richmond, all the way to Woldingham, Crook. So it's a massive area. And then Colin West, he's based in Newcastle, and he covers up to Berwick from north of mine. So it's a big area we cover, and we do attract a lot of different kinds of buyers, a lot of investors, and you generally find that some people who that's what they do for a living. But we sell all kinds of properties. We sell things from a derelict house to something which may be tenanted. And we sell commercial as well. So we've got in Stockton itself at the moment, we've got a couple of properties which have got takeaways and flats above, which are tenanted, which we're selling as a ready-made, ready-to-go investments. You know, so it does vary. With auctions, we do commercial as well as residential, where with Reed's Range it's predominantly residential.
And I imagine like the kind of investors that you see vary from people who are starting to dabble a little bit in the property market, whether they've had like some inheritance or they've got a bit of money themselves, or to people like you say who are doing it.
We do a lot of first-time investments because obviously you don't get much return from the bank.
No.
So we do find that people do, and auction's quite popular. Homes and the Hammer.
It's that kind of,
they recorded 5 of our 7 auctions last year.
Oh, actually. Really? That's amazing.
So they do that, but it's on TV every day. People kind of like it. We have people come and it's a good a good event.
Students love it for some strangers. And they really, really watch it like in the middle of the day.
Because at home.
We miss it kind of thing. So moving a little bit like into like commercial property and things like that is obviously, speaking of own personal experience, which is I can only talk about and a little bit about clients, but a lot of businesses, especially when they're office based, maybe used to start going to like an all service type building. Like, do you cover that type of thing, or is that generally handled in house by them? Or
as far as that's concerned, we're not a commercial agent. We don't let in that sense.
But then obviously people come out of them and then go into other premises, because obviously, while it's great when you start up, generally the rent's higher than what you might find somewhere else, and obviously what you can do in there is very, very narrow.
Well, I suppose if you're successful, you may want to purchase, or rather than have an investment that you're actually based within, as opposed to paying out rent. But only in my experiences when it comes to leasing is that, and from friends as well, when we let our first office with the pack and the lease pack, we sent it out solicitor. It was quite expensive for them to go through because it was huge, but they made 38 amendments, and everyone was okayed by our landlord. So if we hadn't, what would we be signing? And
exactly.
And I've got a friend who decided to do it himself, and his rent's been reviewed every 6 months, and it's cost him a lot of money. So you've got to be really careful, I suppose. And it's worth spending the money up front to make sure that the lease is protecting you, just to protect yourself.
And you need to be protected, and that goes back to if you deal with somebody like yourselves, where you can get all that advice under one roof and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, if you've got happy clients, then they'll buy the properties and look to you move it, etc., etc. So talking about business in Teesside and things like that, are you noticing a trend of more people looking to invest in their own properties, or is it somewhere where like commercial properties are growing in Teesside, or is it like smaller businesses that are starting? Obviously, we talk a lot about on the podcast that Teesside is the highest number of startups from anywhere in the UK, but they might be on the smaller side. Like, they might not be at the case where they're renting or buying, etc., their own properties. Is there still a good, healthy market like on the other end of the scale?
I think commercial is difficult because I know there's the whole retail side, and if you just go down Stockton High Street, you'll see there's a lot of vacant properties.
But if it's weird, like it's weird Stockton, like we've discussed it a couple of times on the podcast, like that's empty, but if you go into the side streets, then there's loads of great little businesses. But I don't know whether it's because the rent, etc., are still extortionate on High Street, but we've just got to look at how like Bedford Street and Baker Street over in Middlesbrough, like the full, there's no vacant lots as far as I know on there.
No, you're right, and there's lots of similar sort of Silver Street where we are.
Yeah.
There's the new wool shop opened up, I believe, just up the road, and
They've
there's
got
quite
some
a
great
few.
press recently as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, and there's a few shops just. Hooray, that's along from us. So there's some nice little shops opening up there, and I'm sure they're doing well. And so there is the demand for it. But I think a business like that, there's some big units available, isn't there? In Stockton High Street, and I just think as commercial, I think if you're buying it as an investment, if there's a tenancy in place and you're buying it, then and it's a long-term tenancy there, then I think you're potentially protected by that. And equally, if you're buying a building where there's maybe a blue chip firm, where it could be a national firm, then again you're protecting yourselves by buying it. But it's something that I don't specialise in, to be fair. We do sell at auction, and we do. I suppose we do in a sense, but it's not something that we do. I spend my whole time.
If it's there, then it's a great thing to do. But I imagine it's a very different market with different things that you've got.
It isn't we don't do commercial leases or lettings as experts. You can see who have businesses on Teesside for years who can do that. At auction, we do sell properties, and they've got legal packs and everything's in place, so they can see them. So you search up front your title plan if they are let. There's tenancy agreements within there, leases within there, so that people can view and check.
It's fantastic as an investor. That's exactly what you want to see. Flat out. It is really good that you sit there and say, you know what, like, we're not specialists in this, because there's not many businesses that would say that. Like, there's a very common trend in Teesside for from like even in marketing, where people want to say that they want to do a bit of everything. They want to say that they're experts in everything. I personally don't know how you can be an expert in several different things.
Exactly. So we are, in terms of auctioneers, we are a residential sales lettings. That's our core business. That's what we want. And sometimes you can take your eye off the ball, I suppose, if you spend too much time on something else which isn't maybe going to be as successful. So I think it's just getting your head down and do what you're good at. Especially if businesses start to diverse, then you, for example, if you start to go down commercial, then your focus changes to a different type of clientele, and you've got to set up for them. Where I imagine people like privately who want to come in, the great thing about re-rents is, like you said, that you do have branches in all those areas, so people can come in, and especially for maybe like the generation above, etc. They still really want that personal touch. They do. It's interesting. Gisborough, it's a market town. So a lot of people. So it's a busy branch. People walk in all day long. Middlesbrough, we were on Borough Road, and it was a ghost town on Saturday. And nobody came, so we took the decision to move. So we did move to Trimden Avenue 2 years ago this year. It is 2 years in July, and it's a very busy branch, and a lot of local people come in and out. But we still cover the whole of Teesside, as we always did. We're just 2 miles away from where we were before. But we get more footfall as well. So
which is important, and it can make or break a retail business. Well, even though because it is a bit strange, like, you are a retail business, but not a retail business. No, a very good component of like both things, don't you?
It's like you talk about what affects the business, and obviously fee levels are a lot different. Again, I'm not going to play my little violin here. Than what they were a few years back, because it's a lot more competition, and we have to adapt to that. We can't just be single-minded and say, well, this is what we charge because we've got a business, but it's all about getting as much business as we can from that particular customer, and giving a good service at that as well. So that's why we offer the conveyance and the mortgage and everything else. That.
And it does, like, obviously everybody's kind of going like to look at services now where you can do a bit of everything. That's why Tesco and Asda have moved into electronics and all that kind of stuff, and all that kind of thing. The great thing about Teesside business at the moment is I'm not sure what's happened with but the large unit, I don't know if you know anything. I don't, but the large unit is supposed to be Sainsbury's.
Oh, right, near the football ground. Yeah.
I've heard a couple of rumours of things going in there, but I don't know how accurate they are. I've heard rumblings, but again, these are only I've heard of an IKEA possibly going in there. That I'm praying to God doesn't.
Really?
Oh yeah, because my wife loves IKEA.
I can never get out with there, to be honest. I was in there.
You can
get strapped for hours, can't you?
I know. That's the thing. You've got to walk around everything. You've got no choice.
Exactly.
You go in for one thing, and all of a sudden
come back with some tea lights and meatballs. That's all you're doing.
That's all. Tea lights, can't move for tea lights in my house. I don't know why. It's all I get you. But a few different. But there's a lot of development going, obviously, on in that area. There's going, if it ever happens, the ski slope and all that kind of thing. So everybody's very vocal.
It's great because obviously it was terrible when the steelworks closed and all the jobs losses, but it's on a resurgence, certainly, isn't it, at the moment? And it's good to see, and We're touch wood. We're busy at the moment, you know. Things are busy and a long way to continue. Well, but that's a reflective in terms of obviously people employment, working, and we felt, as every business did, when the steelworks closed, we felt the impact. We had lots of sales fall through. We had other areas, and all businesses were affected by it. And but we were lucky that we came through it as we did the credit crunch at a difficult time, because we opened up in this great time in. We opened up the franchise, and then within I think 6 months, Northern Rock tipped over, and the whole world fell apart. Yeah. So we survived that anyway. So,
but that's it's a real testament to you, because without you probably don't want to sing about it that much, but it's there's a lot of businesses that went under during that time, and especially a lot of people entering like businesses and startup world now. We're in a very good time at the moment. It's coming out of that. Maybe it wasn't as great as what it once was, but it's if we have another one of those, or the next downturn, because there will be one, because there always are. You know what I mean?
The uncertainties that we look towards, because my business is dependent on people being able to buy houses. So it's all about being able to borrow money from banks and things.
The economy
and the cost of lending, and we're approaching who knows when Brexit. And who knows what effects that's going to have on the affordability of being able to lend. And all these different all these different things that potentially could happen. So it's unknown at the moment. So we obviously things are going okay at the moment.
Just kind of everyone's kind of crossing their finger.
Just let things carry on as they are, and we'll see what happens with that. But that's a risk I'm sure to everyone is what's going to happen.
It isn't something we talked about previously on the podcast that we've mentioned, like SSI and stuff like that, and Carillion, etc. A lot of people kind of have the view, like in the public, that they're a massive company, they deserve it, but that puts under a lot of businesses when those things go under, because local contract, like whoever had the cleaning contract, for example, for Carillion,
a friend of mine, I actually spoke to a gentleman who did some work for me, and his company has gone on the basis of Carillion and the contract and the money that was owed to him. So it has a huge effect on local business.
And then in turn, the businesses that they use, because they use local businesses who use local businesses. Like we talk about, if you use a local, like for example, walking into Reed Rains, you're not just doing business with them and feeding all the families of the people that you employ, but it's all the businesses that you use as well. From everything from a cleaner to your people who take your bins, or whatever, and everything. There's a large knock-on effect that people don't see. And it's good that your business has managed to, like, when there's is to be able to buckle down and move on, because
it was tough, hence I've gone grey. I had nice dark hair before the credit crunch happened, but
so my hair's slowly going backwards as business goes on.
So. But no, it was really, really tough. But we managed to get through it, and like I say, so far so good. Things are going up. We're having a good 2018, so long may it continue.
But it is that good thing of you being I don't want to use the word reactive, because that's like the wrong word, but looking as the market's changing and changing with it. There is a very popular thing it's something that obviously I talk about quite a lot because it is close to my heart, but businesses were built in Teesside under using different forms of media. A classic example is the Gazette. A huge amount of businesses that have been in trade 20, 30, 40 years built their businesses on the Gazette, but they didn't move when the market moved, and if you don't, it will catch up with you. Toys R Us is a classic example. Well, believe it or not, I don't know if you know, but they in the very early days in the US. Amazon, unbelievable. I think I mention.
I don't know. I think I seen a picture. Someone told me something about it where they approached. It might have been yourself.
So for a lot of people who don't know, in the US, basically, when online shopping and etc. Toys R Us give all their online stuff to Amazon for fulfill, and all that happened is people got used to going to Amazon to get the stuff, and then
did Amazon not approach Toys R Us initially?
I think so.
Were you interested in this, like, purchase this part of the business? And
it's
like Blockbuster. Believe it or not, I read that last week. 2 of the last 3 Blockbusters closed last week.
Really? They're still going? That's insane that they're still there.
One's in somewhere like Alaska, and I don't know. Obviously, they must have just got Netflix.
Well, they went on record saying that they would put Netflix out of business in a year. Like, because they thought it was going to be the experience of renting a video rather than sitting there in your pajamas and clicking buttons.
But this is the risk to my business, to be fair, with online estate agency. That's why we need to be flexible and being able to offer that service, which we do, and adapt if that's the way it's going to go. So it's something that as a business we've got to be aware of. It's not something that I can't be blasé and say, oh well, we do this and that different.
But a lot of businesses do.
There's a lot of money getting ploughed into them companies, and they're going to have a percentage of the market. So it's how we can.
It is a good thing that you've got both sides of the business. For example, like people may browse, etc., or looking online, but if there's ever, and I imagine like 1,000,001 problems can happen when buying a house, for a variety of reasons. But when these problems happen, you don't want to send a contact form in. You want to go and speak to a human being who's dealing with it.
I think sometimes as well, there's some online agents where you pay for their service up front.
Yeah.
And that's it, the one stop. You just pay that amount of money. Whereas with us, we only get paid if you exchange contracts and complete. It's no sale, no fee.
Yeah. So, which is a massive thing.
So we're very obviously we need to exchange and complete.
Yeah.
So we're going to be very, very, very proactive once the property is sold to make sure that can go through, and so that urgency. And again, maybe I'm not saying they're not like that, but that's something that we certainly are. We're very proactive towards making sure sales go through smoothly and getting them through across the line.
That's the thing though. If I was selling a house, like my own personal opinion, like I'd be very wary to pay somebody money up front, and like, do I get this back if you don't sell my house? Like, or like they just keep that if they don't sell it? You want somebody.
It's interesting because I know we're talking about a particular firm, but they're proven to be successful. So it's interesting to see how they move on. I'm not saying it's something that maybe we wouldn't do in the future. At the moment, I think what we do is it's traditional. It's no sale, no fee, and it's working really well. So where we are.
I'd be interested to see like market split of where people use that service and are happy to pay up front. In my own guess, which is complete guesswork, I could easily be proven wrong, so nobody put a bullet in my head, that it wouldn't be as common in Teesside. I think that we are very much still on a very personal. They are listing more than what they have in the past, these online agents. But I suppose the selling point is that you don't pay estate agency fees, but the average house price on Teesside is different to that in the southeast. Yep.
So the difference in fee from paying a fixed amount of maybe just short of £1,000 is hugely different to an estate agent's fee in London.
Massively.
So therefore they're going to get a lot more of the market.
Yep.
Where up here it's not as big a difference.
Yeah.
And you can see the difference in what's offered. So that's maybe why it hasn't. But like I said in the past, it's something that we've got to be very conscious of. And again, I speak to Reeds Range all the time and say there's lots of technology and lots of things changing. There's something that I'd like to do in the future. There's things like smart viewing where you don't have to actually go in the house, you can view it online. And we're looking at social media side and in terms of interactive viewings and things like that.
Great we love like the 360 stuff and stuff like that, because I think that's a phenomenal way for people to look.
We've done a couple. It's like a doll's house. You pan out and you go in. It's really, really good.
Which is what people kind of want. There is that kind
Matterport, I think. Matterport cameras.
I think we were having a chat with you. Was showing it does floor plans and stuff.
Right.
I think somebody was showing me that you could get one that does a floor plan and everything as well.
It is like a doll's house, and you click on it and it takes you in. And once you're in the room, you can look at everything. It's really, really good.
Now there was a load of like stuff like Google Tours, for example, a few years ago, but they were a bit just ahead of the time. I think the cost doesn't weigh out, because obviously these things for a lot of business, and these businesses have probably thought about it. But how many houses have we got to sell using it? If they did it for every single house, how many have you got to get through for yourself? And are these people really bothered? Like, again, I suppose it's knowing your demographic.
And the time it takes to produce it, and would I need to recruit someone who's solely this particular person? So all the cost implications of doing it, and what works. At the moment, we do have packages for large properties where we can offer them services. And we've got our own, which again we can offer an audio too, and we can offer all these particular things. But we've got good quality cameras as well, and we use a local photographer for some lessons, and we're conscious about how our details are presented, because that's how we're seen. So we do spend time and effort making sure they are.
And it is like having that, not only like, obviously, your position is that you want to make every house look as good as it possibly can, because that helps. So like, I remember I was talking to somebody, can't remember this, but they said like in property, when it was outside and stuff, they Photoshop like blue skies and stuff into it. So it's not like, grey and rainy, they just sell more houses.
You can walk into a house though, and there can be snow on the ground, and they say, well, I've got some fantastic photos of my property in the summer. And I say, but we're selling it in January. So
people know, don't they?
But it looks like it's been in the market 6 months if we do that. So let's take seasonal shots, and if if for whatever reason it's not sold in a few months later, we'll come back and take one in the spring.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
It is a good thing, and obviously there's all those, you know, I'm sure we've all seen it where there's certain estate agents that'll take photographs, but when you actually go to the house, the photographs look nothing like what the actual property looks like, and it is kind of like, this looked 10 times the size on, you know.
There's the Property Misdescriptions Act, and we've got to be careful, and consumer protection regulations and all these different things that we have to be wary of, and make sure that things are presented as they are.
See, I didn't know about any of that. I didn't know that was an actual thing, which I'm suppose like a lot of people don't know.
So yeah, so if we put a property on the market, we complete a brochure, and the vendor will sign that off to say they're happy with everything written within it. There's also a questionnaire that the seller will complete, consumer protection, which asks all various questions on the property, and so we can answer questions. But that's new legislation that's gone in not too long ago, a couple of years back now. So every vendor now will have to complete a questionnaire when they go on the market with this. So there's lots of sort of hoops to jump through, but it's important that it's done right.
Well, I think that's the same in all industries where they're looking forward to where everything's represented properly for the consumer.
I think with anti-money laundering laws, I believe now we're doing the job of the government, to be honest. In a lot of things we do, we have to, obviously, we check identification of anyone selling a property, but we have to verify that the identification they give us now is correct. So I have to pay for a separate system, and I have to pay to verify someone's identification. You know, then if somebody lives in a particular property by themselves, I'll then have to spend more money getting a title search to ensure that they are the sole owners of that property. Which I suppose it's our responsibility that we're selling it.
It is,
But it wouldn't exchange contracts without that, and well, we accept it, and it is good that I suppose now we're quite comfortable in everything we're doing is correct and proper. And there's heavy fines from the HMRC if we don't do these things. But
again, that's the good thing of you having, you know, been around for so long and having the infrastructure that you have. Like, I can imagine if you were looking to, you know, if someone was starting out or just had a couple of agents, etc., then these kind of costs and regulations can have a massive impact.
But the AML costs across the business is there'll be a couple of grand, you know, and paying for these checks and searches at least. So it's another law change which costs us a lot of money. You know,
but you know that like it's good to know though. It's like if a consumer that they're coming to Reed Range that these checks are being done.
That's it, and that's again being part of a big brand. We don't cut any corners. Everything's done right and proper. That's key.
Because it's the worst thing ever. Like obviously, if it's not a regulated industry, that you want to go to reputable people who you know. If anybody can set up a shop just down the road with two lads inside it, you don't know. Like they could choose not to do these checks, and you don't know. And
I think as well as it's just everything about ourselves in terms of the benefit of we constantly retraining. There's constantly online modules that all my team do, all the staff do, and so we're always learning all the changes and what have you. And so it's interesting. Like, it's forever changing. There's always some of the legislation around the corner.
But it's good though that you have again that infrastructure where you are investing back into your staff to train them, etc. For you know, businesses, it's hard for them to like smaller business, hard to invest that much in the staff, where they might just be, I don't care, just sell houses, you know. So, but it's good that you've got that. And to be honest, like buying a house is a big purchase for pretty much you know.
Most people, it's the world's biggest asset, isn't it? And that's why that's when we sell them for someone. We've got to treat it like that as well, you know.
And it's like obviously it's a good thing that you have that mindset, because there's always a thing in every business that you can be a bit desensitized to your product of what you do, where it's just a normal everyday thing for you to sell a house and go through these checks. But it's the first time somebody's doing it. It can be petrifying. And it's good that you always kind of have that kind of like, you know.
That's it. And it's funny when you're talking about marketing and it's trying to make things look different. And there's a guy who was an estate agency over in he used to work for Reed Range years ago. He used to train me, and I think he's based in over St Helens Way, Widnes, and his write-ups are unbelievable. He'll put phrases of movies and all sorts of stuff. But one of the funniest ones he did was, I didn't expect to see that in a lounge when I walked in the house. I didn't expect to see that in a lounge. And I did that for one property we had in the past as the opening Gambit. It was the most viewed property we had. Because it's just an interesting route in, but we won't do that for everyone. But,
no, and that's the thing.
But it's interesting because when you're marketing property, it's about making it different from the house 2 doors down or 3 doors down, but within the realms of property misdescriptions and being able to sell it not too flowery and being able to sell it correctly, you know.
Exactly, and obviously with marketing, it's just an attention grab. And that's what market is essentially, is getting people's attention. And when it comes to marketing properties, etc., you need to differentiate yourself not only from those houses, but from competitors and stuff like that. And I imagine your industry is a very competitive industry to be in.
Hugely,
well, every industry, to be honest, is now these days. But it is differentiating yourself. And the good thing is, obviously, with Rearrange, is that you do have this massive infrastructure that people don't. And, you know...
That's it. And we're on all the key sites. And we do a fair bit of social media at the moment. That's proven quite successful. You know, just finding people interested in properties, sponsoring properties in certain locations as you can. So that's paying dividends as well. So it's working.
And
well for
you know,
us.
there's the whole thing with social media. We won't go in there. Everybody knows that we do, but you know, like targeting for behaviour, and if they're like you know, you can even run ads against your competitors.
It's a minefield. I know we're probably going to discuss that later, but it's a minefield in terms of demographics and who you target and things. And I don't profess to know anything about that or attempt to, but we do locations and maybe age. Obviously we don't need 16-year-olds looking at if they probably potentially haven't got a house to sell, you know.
Exactly, so. But it's good to kind of like reverse engineer and talk about we talked about it previously, obviously, but changing demographics within your industry and everything's like a little bit, you know, different. I imagine it's area to area. I don't know if you get that kind of data back from Rearrange as a whole kind of company or stuff like that.
We do. I did exercise a few years back because I advertised on a local radio station, and we worked at the demographics average age of our sellers, and this is going back a few years, and it's different now, I think, because there's more movement in the market, so we're probably going back 4 or 5 years, and the average age of our vendors at that time was, I think, 51. So I advertised on Smooth.
It's a good idea, you know what I mean?
So that's why we chose that route, but I think now you can see it's different because the market is changing, and there's more and more, not a huge amount, but there's more first-time buyers coming to the market, and that helps, and there's people now who are starting to move up the ladder. So one thing we didn't see a long time ago when the market was really tough was many chains. But now we're getting more and more where there's maybe 3 or 4 or 5 houses within that chain. Which is a good sign of the market moving. It'll be a bit of a headache to manage them, but
but again, it's a good sign.
Absolutely,
that everything's going the right way.
Wouldn't have it any other way. Then.
And it is worth, you know, obviously talking about, like, especially going back to in Teesside, there is that time where people are moving through like the lifetime of a customer kind of thing, where people are where they were, you know, 10 years ago, say, you know, 50, 40, etc., where they might be looking still to move houses, or if you're in an industry where, you know, say kitchens or windows or whatever, making improvements to the house, they're probably moving at the time where they're not looking to do it. Maybe downsize, maybe when kids move out, etc. But then there's all the new people coming in, but they're not used to communicating like with those people and how they like to be communicated to.
Yeah, things do change, I suppose, in terms of that. And as mentioned earlier on about Rightmove and Zoopla, and I bought my first house probably about 18 years ago, and I used Rightmove, or I think it was just about out then, 2001. That's the only thing there was, really. And the majority of people we go and see use Rightmove because that's all they know.
Yeah, completely.
But when we look at lettings, and the age of the people renting our properties is probably on average younger, say under 30. A majority of our leads coming through that are through Zoopla. That's more techie, and it's more. So it's on the press, on radio. So it is interesting how things change.
So again, like I'd be really interested to start looking at the data, obviously, of like people are coming through that kind of funnel. But when things go wrong, would they still want to go and talk to a person? Like, do they want to see someone? You know, like young people are more likely to say use these services, but are they still wanting a person to help them guide through it? Because obviously most of these first-time buyers, it's a daunting world.
Oh, absolutely.
So so it'd be good to see kind of like, I'm very happy to browse and look through these sites, but I still want
somebody to speak to.
Somebody to speak to local. And I think maybe it is like in the industry, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but it is still kind of in that halfway point. It's not the point where everyone thinks, right, we'll move. Well, there is, I suppose, something to move all online.
I know, I think people, but you're right, you still need, there's areas of Teesside where you need local knowledge. There's areas of Teesside where there may be shale within a property, if you understand what shale is, where it can cause heaving floors. The foundations maybe from a Broseley home in Thornaby in the 70s, you know, on Stainsby Hill, so that particular location. So we've got the knowledge, and we know that. If that's someone in a call centre in Manchester, we'd never know that. We'd never know to ask the questions. So it's important that you have a knowledge of an area. Again, we know schools, we know all these different things. You've got to be very careful about talking about catchment areas because they change all the time. but we can tell you, if someone asks us a question, we can talk about a school, we can talk about what the local pub is, we can talk about all these things which can help them, as well as having expertise about the market as well.
I would have never even thought like that about stuff like that, like catchment areas and things like that. It's something that, believe it or not, we're like, my daughter's just about to be 2, but it's something that we're thinking about already.
So we get so many people now looking to the market to potentially move to be in the area they want to be for the child's school.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do think about that. But it's, I had somebody I knew had an estate agency further south, and they advertised on their details which school the catchment area is in.
Yeah.
And that changed, and the people spent a lot of money on a particular house, and he was up to his neck in it, bless him, and it caused a huge problem. And so I would never ever say.
Yeah. You can advertise currently as we are talking right now.
I wouldn't even say that, to be fair, but if people generally know. So I've got 2 girls. One just started secondary school, and Hannah.
That's a frightening time for me. I think college too.
It's frightening for me now. I tell you, these phones and things.
Yeah.
Some of the podcasts, maybe like this one.
Well, we'll actually talk about like family stuff in a second. So
and then my youngest daughter, and we were very conscious at the time of which school she was going to, and being in the right locations, and being close to that. So I think a lot of families do think about that. They want to be in the areas in it, and it can affect demand for housing as well. There's certain areas where there's a huge demand because it's near a great school.
Absolutely. And it is one of those things that I imagine forces people to move. Like you quickly realise that when you have your first child, that the walls start coming on you rather quickly. So it may be a prompt for a move, and then you do start tking, I'm going to be there for 10, 15, 20 years or whatever. So you do need, there is a knock-on effect of all that kind of thing.
Definitely.
And again, that's, if we're going through a baby boom or people starting families, then it is another driver. Teesside is very community centric. One of the things that I want to talk about, obviously, especially with you having East Cleveland, from what we've spoken to people, they are very much kind of they want a local branch or to deal with local people, kind of thing. They don't want to travel to Middlesbrough, what I mean?
It's really interesting again. But it's in Acklam now, where we've moved to Acklam, we've got some local people who come in. There's a gentleman who always pops in, brings flowers in, fresh fruit all the time. He's a really nice gentleman. He always, on his way to the bookies, I think he pops in and sees Alice and Catherine and Chris. And then in Gisborough, there's people walk past, wave in, and they always pretty much know who everyone is. And it's very much sort of community, and but a lot of people do walk in, and it's not such a small town in that sense, but a lot of people know everyone, so it's a good community, and equally, I suppose East Cleveland as well have got.
And again, it's good to have that high street presence for that, because you wouldn't have that kind of thing, and they definitely do want, to work with people as local. So, moving forward, what kind of advice would you give if you were going to give somebody who's a first-time buyer or looking to sell a house in the current market? What kind of things would you tell them to look out for in an estate agent? Obviously, come to Reed Rains is the main thing that obviously we'd want to get across. But, stuff like that, being accredited for certain agencies and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So there's the Property Ombudsman for estate agency. So we're part of the Ombudsman scheme, which gives it's a redress scheme. So you've got, as a customer, you've got a right to reply. If I'm not part of that and you complain, then I could say tough, but I have to answer to this redress scheme, so I've got to do things by the book to that and make sure that, and if I did anything wrong, then I can be held accountable for it. So I'd always say look for that. Equally, we're part of the Ombudsman scheme for lettings. There's others out there called ALA. I'm a member of the National Association of Estate Agency. So I think they're key things to look out for in terms of an agent, what they are, who they are affiliated to.
Yeah, completely.
And then other things, just look at if I was choosing an estate agent, I'd look at how, if they were selling my house, how they're presenting it. So maybe I'd go online and see how they are present property. Do a bit of a mystery shop, call around, pretend you're a buyer. That's if I was selling.
Obviously,
I'm saying that on the confidence that my guy is going to be great. Girls, but I'm sure they are. But just the things you would do generally. And I'm confident that if anyone did that with us, they'd get a good response.
And it is something that you said that, the fact that you've got to complete the house, you've got to complete the listing. I think that's for me. I think that's a big driver for consumers, because then you are invested in selling the house. It just doesn't. Thank you. We take your money and it's on.
We don't charge a withdrawal fee. It's purely no sale, no fee. So the incentive is to us. We need to sell the property. So that's what we work to do, and we don't get paid if we don't do that.
Exactly. So
that's So that's somebody again. When you look to tie in, when we speak to a customer, we want a sole agency agreement if we're offering no sale, no fee. So I suppose it's give and take in that sense. We want an opportunity because we're spending money marketing the property. We want an opportunity to be able to sell it, but at the same time, I'd be wary of not signing too long an agency agreement if you were signing one. So on average, probably maybe 16 weeks, 4 months. You know, if you think 16 to 20 weeks is fair enough. Anything beyond 6 months is a long time.
It is, so. And it's good for people to know that kind of thing, you know. So if people wanting to get in touch with either of your 3 branches of Reed Rains, where can they find them? Obviously, we'll link everything below.
Yeah, well, the email address for each branch is the name of the town, so it's Middlesbrough at Reed Rains, Stockton at Reed Rains, Gisborne at Reed Rains. Our website, reedsrains.co.uk. And we've also got a Facebook, Reed Rains Teesside. So you can see us on there. And I believe we're on Twitter as well, which is Reed Rains Tees. I think that one is. So they're the main ports of call. And from our website, you can get our numbers. I won't list out a whole load of numbers now, but
the 3 numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. No problem. It's great to get. I've learned a lot, especially about a lot of things that I didn't know about the property market. So it's always a good thing for me to host these things.
No, it's been interesting. I've enjoyed it.
If anybody is looking to get in touch with obviously Reed Rains and stuff, everything will be linked below, and everything obviously you've said. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
The Teesside Business Podcast is promoted and produced by Person to Person Market, which is a dedicated social media agency in Teesside. Thank you very much for listening.